I never thought I'd be where I am now, tangled in this web of bills and choices that all seem to tighten the noose rather than loosen it. It's like every month, I wake up and immediately feel the weight of numbers: rent, utilities, groceries, phone, internet, student loans, pressing down like a storm cloud I can't outrun. The strangest thing is how the pressure sneaks up on you. When I was younger, I imagined adulthood as freedom, having my own place, being able to decide what to do with my money, chasing my dreams without anyone telling me no. Now, I'm not sure I even recognize that person I used to be, the one who thought life would be easier after college. The economic environment, whatever people call it these days, feels like a relentless tide pushing me under. Inflation is a word I hear tossed around casually, but for me, it means paying $40 for a loaf of bread I once got for $25. It means gas prices that make driving to work feel like a luxury, even though I have to go. It means my paycheck arriving, and almost immediately, the bank account shrinking so fast it's almost surreal. Rent eats up half my salary, and then the rest is a balancing act. Do I buy groceries that last a week, or do I fix my phone screen that cracked last month? It's never enough, never quite enough. I remember one night sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a stack of unopened bills. The fluorescent light was harsh, making every crease on the paper look like a scar. I felt completely alone, even though my roommate was just a few feet away watching TV. I didn't want to bother her with my worries, it wasn't like she had it easy either. But I needed to scream, or cry, or just say out loud what I was feeling: I'm scared. I don't know how I'm going to keep this up. The words felt heavy, and when I finally whispered them to myself, it was like admitting I was trapped. That feeling of being trapped is the worst. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up no matter how fast you go. Every time I think I've saved a little, a car repair or a surprise medical bill pushes me right back down. I've tried cutting back on everything: no eating out, no new clothes, canceling subscriptions I once enjoyed. But it's not enough. Expenses rise faster than my income, and that gap just gets wider. Sometimes I lie awake, calculating in my head how many hours I'd need to work just to cover the difference. The math is cruel. I cope the best I can. Sometimes that means distraction, binge-watching shows, scrolling endlessly on my phone, even if it makes me feel worse later. Other times, I find small pockets of joy: a walk in the park, a coffee shared with a friend, a book from the library. Those moments remind me there's more to life than bills and money, but they're fleeting. Most days, I carry a constant undercurrent of anxiety, a tight knot in my chest that refuses to loosen. What hurts the most is the dreams I've had to postpone. When I was in college, I planned to travel after graduation, to see the world and maybe find a new path. I wanted to save for grad school, to pursue something I love, not just something practical that pays the bills. I imagined owning a home someday, having stability and comfort. Now, those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful, but impossibly far away. I keep telling myself it's temporary, that if I just hold on, things will get better. But hope is fragile. It fades a little with each setback. Sometimes I wonder how many people feel this way. Is this just the way life is now? Is it normal to feel so stuck, so powerless? I try to remind myself that I'm not alone, but it's hard when your day-to-day is consumed by survival. The system feels rigged, designed so that expenses climb, but wages crawl. The harder I try, the more the finish line seems to move farther away. Despite all this, I keep going. Because what choice do I have? I remind myself of the small victories: making rent on time, not missing a payment, finding moments to laugh with friends. Those moments are lifelines. And maybe someday, if the world shifts or I find a way out, I'll chase those postponed dreams again. Until then, I'm here, navigating a life where financial pressure is constant, but so is my quiet, stubborn hope that one day, I'll breathe easier. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never imagined that money would feel like such a heavy weight pressing down on every part of my life. It's strange, when I was a kid, I didn't really think much about money. It was just there, or at least that's how it felt. My parents worked, bills got paid, food was on the table, and I had enough to do the things kids do. Now, as a 26-year-old navigating the mess of adulthood, I'm beginning to understand how fragile that balance really is. The economic environment these days feels like a storm I can't outrun, prices climbing relentlessly, my paycheck stubbornly fixed, and every decision shaded by the anxiety of, can I actually afford this? I live in a small one-bedroom apartment in a city where rent seems to balloon every year without fail. Last year it went up by nearly 10%, and this year it's creeping higher again. My income? It's barely nudged since I got my job 2 years ago. I work in digital marketing for a mid-sized company, not glamorous, not terrible, just enough to keep me afloat but never enough to breathe easy. The math is simple but brutal: rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, student loan payments, and the occasional necessary expense like medicine or phone bills, they all add up quickly. And every month, I feel like I'm chasing my tail, trying to stretch each dollar until the next paycheck arrives. Some days, the stress feels like a dull ache behind my ribs, a constant reminder that I'm stuck in a system that's slowly squeezing me. Expenses grow faster than income, and it's maddening to watch. I'll check my bank app and see the balance drop after every purchase, and sometimes I find myself clicking through things I want but can't afford, like a silent reminder of dreams I'm forced to put on hold. A new laptop for work? Too expensive. A trip to visit family? Not this year. A night out with friends? Better skip it and save those few bucks. The emotional toll is heavy. It gnaws at me in the quiet moments, late at night when I lie awake calculating what I might have to skip next month. Do I pay a little less attention to eating well? Maybe cut back on transit and walk further, even if it's tiring? I sometimes wonder if I'm the only one feeling this way, trapped in an invisible cage of rising prices and stagnant wages, where every small choice feels like a compromise. At work, I see colleagues who don't seem as affected. Some come from families with more money, others have partners who contribute, but for me, it's a solo struggle. I keep my worries to myself because there's a shame in admitting you're barely scraping by. The system makes it easy to feel like you're failing if you can't keep up. When my friends talk about moving into nicer places or buying new cars, I smile and nod, but inside I feel left behind. It's hard not to compare, to feel the weight of what I don't have. I cope the best I can. Budgeting apps, meal prepping, thrift shopping, and the occasional side gig, a bit of freelance writing here, a few hours of tutoring there, all small attempts to gain some breathing room. But even then, I'm always calculating the cost-benefit. Is the extra work worth the exhaustion it brings? Will the extra income be enough to justify the toll on my mental health? It's a constant balancing act. Despite it all, I hold on to my dreams, even if they feel farther away than ever. I wanted to travel more, to see new places and experience new cultures, but those plans have been indefinitely postponed. Owning a home someday? Sometimes I wonder if that's even possible now. I want financial stability, yes, but I also want the freedom to make choices that aren't dictated by fear and scarcity. I try to remind myself that this pressure isn't permanent. That things can change, maybe not tomorrow, or next month, but eventually. Still, the day-to-day struggle wears me down, and some nights I lie awake feeling overwhelmed by the weight of it all. The world keeps moving forward, prices keep climbing, but my paycheck feels stuck in place, like a small boat in a rising tide. I wish I could talk about this more openly, without feeling judged or like I'm failing. I want others to understand that this isn't about laziness or poor decisions, it's about a system that feels stacked against people like me, making it so hard just to keep our heads above water. I don't have all the answers, but I do know this: financial pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about feeling trapped, about dreams deferred, and about the quiet resilience it takes to keep going when the odds feel stacked against you. Maybe one day, I'll look back and see this as just a rough patch, a difficult chapter in a longer story. For now, though, I'm here, navigating the tightrope of bills and hopes, doing my best to stay afloat in a world where every dollar feels like a small victory. And in those moments, that's enough. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm caught in a slow, suffocating current, and no matter how hard I paddle, I'm barely staying afloat. But here I am, 26 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, with bills creeping up like shadows in every corner of my life. It's exhausting, really. More than just tiring, it feels like a deep, constant weight on my chest that I can't shake off. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I remember graduating college, full of hope and excitement, convinced that hard work and a decent job would carve a clear path forward. I landed a stable office job right out of school, something I was proud of. The salary wasn't huge, but I thought it was enough to start building a life. I figured I'd save a little, maybe travel a bit, and eventually buy a home. But the numbers never added up. The rent went up again this year, more than I expected. Utilities shot through the roof, and the cost of groceries is like a constant pinch every time I walk out of the store. Every month, it feels like I'm trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. The hole keeps getting bigger, faster than I can pour money in. No matter how many overtime hours I take, no matter how carefully I budget, the expenses outpace my income. And the harder I try to keep my head above water, the more exhausted I become. Some nights, I just lie awake thinking about how my bank account will look after rent, utilities, phone, groceries, and transportation are paid, and then what's left for anything else. Spoiler, not much. I've had to make so many little sacrifices. I used to love going out with friends on weekends, trying new restaurants, or even just grabbing a coffee and catching up. Now, I turn down invitations almost all the time. It's not just about saving money, it's about the anxiety that follows spending, the tightrope walk between wanting to enjoy life and knowing I can't really afford to. Sometimes I feel isolated, like I'm missing out on important connections because I can't keep up. There's this gnawing shame in saying no so often, like I'm somehow failing at being a young adult. I postponed dreams, big ones and small ones. That trip to Europe I promised myself after graduation? Not happening anytime soon. The idea of starting a family feels like a distant, almost impossible goal. How do you even think about a kid when you're barely making rent? Even saving for something simple, like replacing my old laptop, feels impossible because I have to prioritize the essentials. The system feels rigged. I work a full-time job, put in extra hours, and still, it's not enough. I see prices rising everywhere, rent, groceries, gas, health insurance, none of it slows down. Meanwhile, wages stay stagnant, or maybe inch up just a little, but never enough to keep pace with the cost of living. Sometimes I wonder if anyone else feels this way, this deep frustration mixed with helplessness. The emotional toll is real. There are days when I feel completely defeated, when the pressure makes me question my self-worth. Am I not working hard enough? Am I doing something wrong? It's a vicious cycle because that kind of thinking only makes me more anxious, and then I find it harder to focus at work or manage daily tasks. I worry about the future in a way I never imagined at this age. But amidst the struggle, I'm learning how to cope, even if it's imperfectly. I've started talking to friends about money more openly, and it turns out I'm not alone. That helps, somehow, knowing others share these worries, even if they aren't always visible on the surface. I try to find small joys, like cooking at home instead of eating out, or taking walks in the park when I need a break. These things don't solve the bigger problems, but they give me moments of peace. I've also been looking into side gigs or freelance work, hoping to build a bit of extra income. It's tough to balance that with my full-time job and the mental load of financial stress, but I want to try. The idea of having some control, some extra buffer, feels worth the effort. Still, I'm realistic, these things take time, and time feels like a luxury I don't have. The truth is, I'm scared. Not just scared of running out of money, but scared of getting stuck in this cycle forever. What if I never get ahead? What if my dreams remain out of reach? But I hold on to hope, however fragile. I remind myself that this isn't permanent, that things can change, maybe slowly, maybe not as soon as I want, but change is possible. I guess what I want most is a break. A moment when I can breathe without this financial pressure pressing down so hard. A chance to save, to invest in myself, to dream without feeling like I'm just treading water. I want to believe in a future where I'm not just surviving but living fully. For now, though, I keep moving forward. I keep paddling against the current, even when it feels impossible. Because the alternative, giving up, isn't an option. Not yet. I never thought I'd feel this kind of pressure so early in life. At 27, I'm supposed to be figuring out who I am, chasing dreams, maybe even feeling a little hopeful about the future. Instead, most days it feels like I'm stuck in a loop where money rules everything, and I'm just trying to keep my head above water. It started slowly. I got my first real job right out of college, thinking I'd be able to manage rent, groceries, maybe save a little, and have enough left over for some fun. But what I didn't expect was how fast everything would get more expensive. Rent jumped, utilities rose, the cost of food crept up month by month. My paycheck? It stayed mostly the same. Or sometimes even felt smaller because of taxes, insurance premiums, and other things I barely understand but have to pay. Every morning, I wake up and do the same mental math. What do I have? What do I need? What can I cut back on this week? And most days, the answer is everything. I've canceled streaming subscriptions, stopped eating out, and cut back on social outings because even the smallest coffee with friends feels like a luxury I can't afford. It's like living inside a shrinking box, where the walls keep closing in, and no matter how hard I push, I don't get more space. The hardest part isn't just the numbers. It's the feeling of being trapped. Like I'm on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my legs aren't getting any faster. I want to breathe, to run, to get somewhere else. But the system, the economy, the job market, the rising costs, is a cage, invisible but unbreakable. I see headlines about inflation, housing crises, wage stagnation, but those words don't fully capture the crushing reality of choosing between paying a bill and buying groceries. Or skipping a doctor's appointment because the copay feels like a luxury I can't justify. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about all the things I used to dream about. Traveling, finishing a master's degree, maybe starting a family someday. I thought I'd be able to save for those things, plan for them. Now, those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful, but impossible to reach. I've had to postpone or cancel plans repeatedly, convincing myself it's just temporary, that maybe next year things will be better. But next year always feels just out of reach, like a mirage on the horizon. I cope by focusing on small victories. Paying off a credit card balance, even if it's just a little. Finding a cheaper grocery store or a discount on essentials. Sometimes, I allow myself a treat, a cheap takeout meal or a second-hand book, because I need those moments of normalcy to feel human, not just a wallet. I try to remind myself that I'm not alone, that so many people my age are struggling too, but that doesn't always stop the loneliness or the anxiety. I'm also careful about what I share. There's shame tied to financial struggle, like admitting you can't keep up means you've failed somehow. But I'm learning that honesty is a kind of freedom. Telling a close friend about how tight things are has brought unexpected relief and support. It's not just about money, it's about the emotional weight that comes with it, the stress, the fear, the feeling that no matter how hard you try, the system is stacked against you. Sometimes, I imagine a different life. One where I can wake up without worry, where I can take a class just for the joy of learning, or say yes to a spontaneous trip. A life where money is a tool, not a chain. I want to believe that future exists, even if it feels far away right now. For now, I keep going. I remind myself that every small step forward is a victory, even if it's invisible to the world. I hold on to hope in the quiet moments, hoping that one day, the cage will open, and I can finally breathe freely again. But until then, I navigate this maze of bills and budgets, holding tightly to my dreams, even if they have to wait. Because giving up on them, that's a kind of poverty no one talks about. I wake up every morning with a knot in my stomach, the kind that never quite goes away no matter how many deep breaths I take. It's the feeling of being stuck, like I'm on a treadmill that's speeding up, but I'm running slower and slower, watching the ground slip beneath my feet. The bills pile up, the rent climbs a little higher each year, groceries cost more, and my paycheck? It's barely budged since I started this job 2 years ago. I'm 27 now, and sometimes I wonder if this is how the rest of my life will be, just trying to stay afloat, always just one unexpected expense away from disaster. Every decision I make feels like a calculated risk. When I walk into the grocery store, I'm not thinking about what I want to eat, I'm scanning prices, hunting for the cheapest options, often buying less than I need, knowing I'll be hungry later. When my phone screen cracked last month, I couldn't just replace it. I weighed the cost of repairs against buying a new charger, a temporary fix to keep it working until I can afford something better. I haven't seen a dentist in over a year because even a small checkup feels like a luxury I can't afford. The thing is, it's not like I'm lazy or reckless, I work a full-time job, sometimes extra shifts, and I keep a strict budget. But the numbers just don't add up the way they should. This economic environment feels like it's designed to squeeze every last bit out of people like me. Rent increases, higher utility bills, skyrocketing food costs, they're all outpacing my wages, and I can't catch a break. It's a constant reminder that I'm at the mercy of a system where the rules seem rigged. There's this invisible ceiling over my head, a barrier I can't break through no matter how hard I try. The government talks about inflation and economic growth, but all I see is my bank account shrinking and my options disappearing. I'm tired, but I'm scared to stop, scared to let things slide even for a moment because I know it'll only get worse. Some days, the weight of it all presses down so heavily I can barely breathe. I feel shame for not having made it by now, for not being able to afford things my friends take for granted, like going out for dinner, traveling, or even just buying a new pair of shoes without guilt. I try to hide this from everyone, but inside I'm constantly comparing myself, feeling like I'm falling behind. My mental health has taken a hit. Anxiety creeps in late at night, whispering doubts and fears about the future. I lie awake, wondering how I'm going to pay rent next month or what I'll do if my car breaks down. There's no safety net, no cushion, just the harsh reality of living paycheck to paycheck. I cope by trying to focus on what I can control. I've learned to cook meals from scratch to save money, even when I'm exhausted. I use public transportation, walk when I can, and cancel subscriptions that don't feel essential. I talk to a few close friends about this, and those conversations help, but there's still a loneliness in it. It feels like I'm carrying this burden alone. Therapy is something I want to try, but it's another expense I can't justify right now. I keep telling myself that this is temporary, that if I can just get through this rough patch, things will improve. The hardest part is the dreams I've had to put on hold. I've always wanted to go back to school, to get a degree that might open doors to better opportunities, but the cost feels insurmountable. I dream of moving to a bigger city, one with more jobs and chances to grow, but the thought of paying for a security deposit and higher rent there scares me. I imagine owning a home someday, a small place where I can feel safe and stable, but that feels like a fantasy. I've postponed visiting family, traveling to new places, even small things like buying a guitar or taking dance classes, activities that once brought me joy but now seem frivolous. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm alone in this. But then I see articles, hear stories from others my age, and realize this is a shared struggle, one that so many of us are trying to survive. That doesn't make it easier, but it makes me feel less invisible. I don't have all the answers. I don't know how to break free from this cycle. But I hold on to hope, a fragile, stubborn hope, that one day, I'll find a way out, that my efforts won't be in vain, and that I'll be able to live a life that isn't defined by worry and sacrifice. For now, I take it day by day, reminding myself that this isn't a failure. It's just my reality. And I'm still here. Still fighting. Still hoping. Every morning, the same knot tightens in my chest before I even open my eyes. It's not just the usual anxiety about the day, it's the heavy weight of numbers, bills, rent, groceries, the car insurance I can barely afford, and all the tiny things that pile up faster than I can keep track of. Sometimes it feels like I'm sinking in quicksand made of expenses that grow while my paycheck stays stubbornly the same. I'm 26 now. I've been working full-time for almost 5 years, yet I'm stuck in a loop where I can't seem to get ahead. It's like no matter how hard I work, the cost of living stretches further and further beyond my reach. I keep telling myself, it'll get better. Maybe next year, or the year after. But the truth is, I'm scared it won't. The economy keeps shifting, prices rising faster than I can adapt, and I'm left wondering if I'll ever feel financially secure. I remember the early days after college, when I first got my job and felt a spark of hope. My salary was modest, but I thought I'd grow with it. I had plans then, big ones. I dreamed about moving into my own apartment, saving enough for a car, maybe even traveling. But each dream has slowly been chipped away, replaced by the stark reality of monthly expenses. My rent alone is a third of my paycheck, and the rest goes to essentials, utilities, food, gas. Any extra money is like a whisper, barely audible. The system feels designed to keep people like me on a treadmill, running hard but going nowhere. Every time I think I can save a little, something unexpected pops up, a medical bill, a car repair, or just inflation pushing prices up again. It's exhausting and humiliating, feeling like I'm always one step behind. I've cut back on almost everything, no more nights out, no fancy coffee, no spontaneous trips or gifts for friends. I've become almost invisible in social settings because I can't keep up. Sometimes I worry I'm missing out on life, but the alternative, getting deeper in debt, is terrifying. Financial pressure has seeped into every corner of my life. It affects how I sleep, what I eat, even how I relate to people. I catch myself avoiding calls from friends because I don't want to admit I can't afford to meet up. I sometimes feel ashamed, like I've failed somehow, even though I know logically that this isn't about failure. It's about an economy that rewards privilege and punishes the rest of us. The shame makes me want to isolate myself, but I also crave connection. It's a strange, lonely paradox. I cope in small ways. I keep a strict budget, track every penny, and celebrate tiny wins, like managing to save $21 month or finding a good deal on groceries. I read about others in the same boat, which helps me feel less alone. I sometimes journal to get the swirling thoughts out of my head. But the coping doesn't erase the frustration or the exhaustion. I often wonder what it would feel like to breathe easy, to know I'm not constantly one emergency away from financial disaster. Despite all this, I still have hopes. They're quieter now, more cautious. I dream of owning a small home someday, a space where I can plant roots. I want to travel, not just a quick weekend trip but something longer, where I can experience new cultures and reset my perspective. And honestly, I hope for peace of mind, to not have money worries dictate every decision I make. But those dreams feel distant, almost like mirages that vanish when I get too close. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if the system were different, if wages grew with the cost of living, if there were more support for people struggling just to get by. Would I be able to chase my passions again? Maybe even go back to school? The thought that the system is set up to keep people like me trapped is hard to shake. It's a cycle I want to break but feel powerless against. This story isn't unique, far from it. I know so many others caught in the same cycle. And yet, telling it feels important because sometimes vulnerability is the first step to finding solidarity. Maybe if we share these truths, the world might start to listen. For now, I take it one day at a time. I remind myself that surviving under this pressure is a form of strength. And though the dreams feel postponed, maybe they're not gone forever. Maybe, someday, the tide will turn. Until then, I hold on to hope, fragile but persistent, like a small flame in a long, dark tunnel. This is my reality, imperfect, tiring, but still mine. And I'm learning to live it honestly, with all the fear and hope that comes with it. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to live with constant financial pressure weighing on your chest, a pressure that never quite lets up, no matter how hard you try to breathe through it. I'm 26 now, and every day feels like walking a tightrope strung over a pit that keeps getting wider and deeper. The expenses keep climbing: rent, groceries, utilities, student loans, and my paycheck just doesn't stretch like it used to, if it ever really did. I want to say I'm managing, but honestly, some days I'm just surviving, holding on by the thinnest thread of hope. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard and got a decent education, things would be okay. I believed in the usual script: go to college, get a good job, save a little, maybe buy a place someday. But reality is so much messier. The job I have pays the bills, but only barely. And barely is such a cruel word because it means no room for error, no breathing space. One emergency, one unexpected bill, and the whole fragile balance collapses. Rent is the biggest chunk. It's like I'm just paying for the privilege of having a roof over my head, not living under it. Sometimes I find myself staring at the rent notice, thinking, is this really all my life is going to be? It's exhausting, the constant mental math of figuring out how to cover that rent, keep the lights on, eat decent food, and still maybe save a few bucks. But the savings never come. They vanish before they even appear. Groceries are another battleground. I used to love cooking and trying new recipes, but now I find myself buying the same cheap staples week after week: pasta, canned beans, frozen veggies, because it's what fits the budget. The joy I once found in food has dulled to a mechanical necessity. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just existing to pay bills and eat, with no real space for anything else. There's a sinking feeling that's hard to shake, like I'm trapped in this system where costs rise faster than my income, where progress feels impossible. Every year, rent increases, prices at the store creep up, my student loans demand their cut, but my salary inching upward feels like a cruel joke. Inflation is this invisible monster that eats away at any progress I make, and it's exhausting. I know I'm not alone in this. I see friends posting about their promotions, buying new cars, taking vacations. I'm happy for them, but it stings a little. Not because I begrudge their success, but because I feel like I'm stuck watching life pass me by while I'm tangled up in spreadsheets and payment reminders. It's like everyone else is moving forward on a track I can't even access. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days I wake up hopeful, determined to make better choices, to cut back, to find a side hustle. Other days, the weight of it all just crushes me, and I want to hide under the covers, escape the reality I can't change. I get anxious opening my bank app, dreading what the numbers will say. I try not to talk about it too much. Who wants to hear about money stress all the time? So I keep it bottled up, which only makes it worse. I cope the best I can. I find small moments of peace in walks, in music, in writing. I remind myself that this isn't permanent, even though it feels like it might be. I try to celebrate small wins: a day I stuck to my budget, a successful job interview, a coupon found on a good day. I've learned to ask for help when I can, even though it feels vulnerable to admit I'm struggling. Dreams? Yeah, those have taken a hit. I used to want to travel, to see new places, to build a home filled with laughter and warmth. I dreamed of going back to school for something I really cared about, maybe art or writing, but that seems so far away now. Every time I think about it, the cost hits me like a wall. I've had to postpone those dreams, push them into a distant maybe someday that feels vague and uncertain. But deep down, I hold on to hope. I believe that one day I'll break free from this cycle, not just for me, but for the person I want to become. I want to live in a world where money doesn't dictate every choice, where I can afford to take care of myself and those I love without constant worry. I want to reclaim the joy that's been buried under all this pressure. For now, I take it day by day. I'm learning to be gentle with myself, even when it feels like I'm failing. This is my story, honest, messy, real. It's about the struggle, yes, but also about resilience. Because even when it feels like the system is designed to trap me, I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming. I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s, like I'm stuck in quicksand, sinking deeper every day no matter how hard I try to pull myself out. When I was a kid, I imagined my life would be different. I pictured freedom, the ability to do what I want, to travel, maybe even start a family someday without feeling like I'm drowning under a mountain of bills. But now, those dreams feel almost laughable, like distant stars I can't quite reach. The truth is, I live paycheck to paycheck, and it's exhausting. Every month feels like a battle to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and a handful of other essentials. The prices keep climbing, rent goes up, electricity bills climb, even basic groceries cost more than they used to. But my paycheck? It barely moves. I work full-time at a retail job, making just enough to keep my head above water, but never enough to breathe freely. I wake up some mornings with a knot in my stomach, a mix of anxiety and frustration. I check my bank app and see the same low balance, sometimes lower than the day before because of an automatic payment or a surprise expense. The numbers don't lie, and they're a constant reminder that I'm trapped. I've had to make choices that no one should have to make, like skipping a meal so I can afford the bus fare, or putting off seeing a doctor because I can't afford the copay. These aren't just inconveniences, they chip away at my dignity. The pressure is relentless. I see friends posting on social media about trips, new cars, or nights out at places I can't afford. I'm genuinely happy for them, but there's a sting too, a reminder of what I'm missing out on. The weight of economic pressure feels heavy, like a silent, invisible chain I carry everywhere. At work, I try to push through with a smile, but some days it's hard to hide how worn down I feel. I want to be more than this, more than just someone scraping by, more than the sum of my expenses and debts. But the system feels rigged against people like me. The cost of living grows faster than my paycheck, and any chance of saving or investing feels like a cruel joke. I've thought about taking on a second job, but the idea of working 70 hours a week scares me. I already feel like I'm running on empty. Sometimes, I just want to stop and cry, but there's no time for that either. Responsibilities don't pause for emotional breakdowns. Coping with all this isn't easy. I've learned to celebrate small victories, like finally paying off a credit card balance or finding a discount on groceries. I keep a small journal where I write down moments of gratitude and reminders of why I'm fighting. Music helps, too, songs that speak to the struggle and resilience, giving me a voice when I feel silent. Despite everything, I haven't given up hope. I still dream of a life where I don't have to stress over every cent, where I can build something stable. I want to go back to school, learn a new skill, maybe find a better job. I want to live in a place that feels safe and comfortable, not just a roof over my head. But for now, those dreams have to wait. They're buried beneath the immediate need to survive. Sometimes, I imagine what it would be like if the system were fairer, if wages matched the cost of living, if housing wasn't a constant financial burden, if healthcare was accessible to everyone. Would I be able to breathe then? To dream freely without the weight of financial fear? For now, I keep going. I remind myself that I'm not alone, that others are struggling too. And maybe someday, somehow, the pieces will fall into place. Until then, I'll hold on to the hope that my hard work will lead to something better, even if the path there feels impossibly steep. It's hard to admit all this, but sharing it somehow lightens the load, even if just a little. I'm more than my financial struggles, even if they feel like the center of my world right now. I'm still here, still trying, still hoping. And that has to be enough. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never imagined that financial pressure could weigh this heavily on someone so young, yet here I am, tangled in this relentless storm. I'm 26, and every morning feels like stepping into a minefield. The costs keep climbing: rent, groceries, bills, transportation, and my paycheck feels smaller by the week. It's this suffocating rhythm, this daily grind that wears me down more than I can say. It starts when I wake up, usually too early because anxiety keeps me restless. I stare at the ceiling, thinking about all the numbers I'll have to juggle that day. Did I forget to pay the electricity bill? How much money do I have left after last week's groceries? Can I really afford the bus fare, or will I have to walk, even if it means arriving late to work? Every little decision feels like a gamble. I'm constantly calculating, dollars and cents become my language, and hope is something I'm afraid to trust. I live in a small apartment in a part of town where rents are inching higher every few months. The landlord is nice, but he's got no control over the market. And the market doesn't care about me. I see new cafes and condos popping up nearby, places I could never afford even if I saved every penny. Sometimes, I watch from my window as people stroll by with shopping bags from stores I can't step foot in without breaking my budget. It's humiliating, but also isolating. It's like I'm living in a bubble that's shrinking while the world outside expands. Work is the only stable thing right now, a low-paying office job I took right after college because I was desperate for security. I'm grateful to have it, truly, but it's not enough. Every raise feels like a drop in the ocean compared to how much things cost. I'm stuck in this trap where no matter how hard I work, I don't get ahead. The bills arrive faster than I can pay them, and I feel like I'm running on a treadmill set to an impossible speed. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I've become so wary of spending that even small pleasures feel like luxuries I can't afford. Coffee with friends? Too expensive. A night out? Forget it. I count every expense, and sometimes I avoid answering calls because they might be debt collectors or reminders of payments I'm late on. There's a constant cloud of stress hanging over me, one that I can't just shake off when I clock out of work. The weight of it follows me home, sits with me at dinner, and even invades my dreams. Sometimes, I catch myself dreaming about a different life, a life where money doesn't dictate every choice. I imagine traveling, exploring cities and cultures beyond this bubble of struggle. I picture a cozy apartment that feels like home, where I can invite friends over without stressing about the electricity bill from turning the heater on. I imagine waking up without this gnawing anxiety in my chest, without the feeling that I'm always just one emergency away from disaster. But those dreams feel so far away now, they're almost embarrassing to hold on to. Instead, I've had to postpone everything, putting off grad school because I can't afford the tuition, delaying plans to buy a car even though public transit wears me down, shelving ideas of moving to a bigger city for better opportunities because the cost of living there is even more brutal. It's a slow, painful concession, and each sacrifice chips away at the hope I have left. I cope the best I can. I try to keep a strict budget, tracking every expense on a spreadsheet I update religiously. I look for side gigs online, some freelance writing, odd jobs that pay cash, anything to patch the holes in my income. I talk to friends when I can, though I'm careful not to burden them with my worries. I'm learning to find small moments of joy, a walk in the park, a book borrowed from the library, a quiet night cooking something simple but comforting. These little things are lifelines, reminders that life isn't just about money. Still, the system feels rigged. It's like running a race with weights tied to my ankles while everyone else has a clear path. The cost of living climbs faster than my income, and I'm always one step behind, never catching up. It's frustrating, humiliating, and exhausting. I want to believe things will get better, but I'm afraid the gap will only widen. I feel stuck, trapped in a cycle where surviving is the victory, and thriving is a distant dream. I'm sharing this because I think many of us are feeling the same way, the silent, grinding pressure of an economic system that doesn't seem to care about people like me. It's okay to admit how hard it is. It's okay to feel vulnerable. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us speak out, we can start to change the conversation about what a fair and livable future should look like. For now, I keep going. I keep hoping. Because giving up feels even heavier than this burden I carry every day. It's been a while since I've felt truly free. Free to breathe without the constant weight of bills pressing down on my chest, free to imagine a future without the endless cloud of financial stress hanging over it. I'm 27 now, and for most of my adult life, money hasn't just been tight, it's been a suffocating force, a relentless tide that pulls me under every single day. I remember when I first stepped into the real world after college, full of hope and plans. I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, to build a career that mattered, maybe even buy a small apartment one day. But reality hit hard, and the economy wasn't on my side. Jobs were scarce, wages stagnant, and the cost of living kept climbing at a pace that felt almost cruel. My first paycheck was a letdown. After rent, student loans, utilities, and groceries, there was barely anything left. It was like running on a treadmill that kept speeding up, and no matter how fast I ran, I stayed in the same place. Every month since then has been a delicate balancing act. I'm constantly juggling bills, trying to stretch every dollar. Groceries? I buy what's on sale and often skip fresh vegetables because they're too expensive. Heating in winter? I layer clothes instead of turning up the thermostat. Social life? That's mostly on pause. Friends invite me out, and I smile and say yes, but deep down, I know I'll end up declining because a night out means sacrificing money I might need for something more essential. There's this quiet loneliness that comes from always having to say no, from missing out on moments that everyone else seems to enjoy without a second thought. The worst part is the feeling of being trapped. It's not just that I don't have enough, it's that everything around me is designed to cost more and more. Rent jumps every year. Grocery prices inch upward. Even transportation, gas, bus fares, become a financial decision rather than a simple necessity. Meanwhile, my income barely budges. I've asked for raises, looked for better jobs, but the system feels rigged. It's like climbing a mountain where the summit keeps moving higher every time you get close. I know I'm not alone in this, I see it all around me, but that doesn't make it any easier to bear. There are days when I wake up feeling like I'm running on empty, physically and emotionally. The stress gnaws at me. Sometimes, I get this sinking feeling in my stomach, like I'm failing not just myself but everyone who's counting on me. I'm not just paying bills, I'm paying with my peace of mind, my energy, my hope. I try to mask it, put on a brave face at work, laugh with friends, but underneath, there's a quiet desperation. It's exhausting to pretend everything's okay when every part of you screams that it's not. I cope the best I can. I track every expense obsessively, hoping to find some hidden savings. I've learned to cook cheap meals that taste halfway decent, because eating out is a luxury I can't afford. I avoid unnecessary purchases like they're poison. And I try to find small joys, reading a book borrowed from the library, watching a movie at home, taking long walks in the park. These little things are lifelines, moments where I can escape the pressure, even if only for a little while. Sometimes, I catch myself daydreaming about what life might be like without this constant financial strain. Owning a home, having a stable career with benefits, being able to save a little for emergencies or, dare I say it, for fun. I imagine traveling to places I've only seen in pictures, meeting new people, trying new foods. I want to build a life where money doesn't dictate every single decision, where I can finally breathe freely. But then the weight of reality pulls me back, and I remind myself, those dreams are on hold. Maybe indefinitely. It's hard not to feel defeated, to not question why the system seems designed to keep people like me in this cycle. But deep down, there's a flicker of stubborn hope. I remind myself that this is a season, not my entire story. I'm learning resilience in ways I never wanted to, and I hold on to the belief that someday, things can change. Maybe not overnight, but gradually, through persistence, through community, through small victories. For now, I take it one day at a time. I celebrate small wins, a week of making ends meet, a surprise discount, a kind word from a friend. I keep my dreams alive, tucked carefully away, waiting for the day when they can grow beyond mere survival. This ongoing financial pressure feels like a trap, yes, but it's also a challenge, a painful, exhausting, humbling one, that I'm determined to face head-on, even if it means moving at a snail's pace. If there's one thing this experience has taught me, it's that I am more than my bank balance. My worth isn't defined by my paycheck or my credit score. And while the system may try to hold me down, I refuse to let it define who I am or what I'm capable of becoming. So I keep going. Because giving up is not an option. I never thought I'd be this person, constantly counting pennies, juggling bills, and feeling like I'm stuck in a loop that only spirals downward. But here I am, 27 years old, living paycheck to paycheck, caught in this relentless tide of rising expenses that my income just can't keep up with. It's exhausting in a way that's hard to put into words, and some days, it feels like I'm drowning under the weight of it all. I remember when I first got my job after college. I had this naive optimism, like maybe if I worked hard enough, saved enough, I'd eventually get ahead. I pictured myself moving into a cozy apartment, maybe traveling a bit, starting to build a life that felt stable and fulfilling. But the reality quickly hit me like a cold wave. Rent shot up faster than my paycheck ever did. Groceries, utilities, transportation, everything costs more every month. And on top of that, there's student loans and credit card payments that never seem to shrink, only grow heavier. It's this endless squeeze that shapes every decision I make. Some days, I skip meals to stretch my food budget. Other days, I debate between paying an electric bill or filling the gas tank because I need to get to work. I've become an expert at hunting for sales, clipping coupons, and choosing cheaper, often less healthy food options. Social invitations? Most of the time, I have to say no. It hurts, feeling isolated, missing out on moments with friends, watching life go on around me while I'm stuck trying to make the numbers add up. The emotional toll is even harder to handle. There's this gnawing anxiety that never fully leaves, worry about what will happen if there's an unexpected expense, like a car repair or a medical bill. I lie awake at night, running through all the what-ifs and feeling powerless. Some days, it feels like the system is designed to keep people like me trapped, to make sure we're always scrambling but never quite getting ahead. The frustration and helplessness creep in quietly, eroding my confidence and sense of self-worth. I ask myself often, am I failing? Am I just not good enough? But deep down, I know this isn't about me, it's about a system that's broken, about economic forces that prioritize profit over people. To cope, I've had to get creative. I started budgeting obsessively, tracking every expense like a hawk. I've taken on side gigs, some freelance work, odd jobs whenever I can find them, but the time I spend working often eats into my limited downtime and leaves me drained. I've also leaned on small routines that bring me some peace, morning walks, journaling, and calling my family, who understand and support me even if they can't fix my situation. These moments remind me that I'm more than my bank balance, more than this struggle. Still, there are dreams I've had to put on hold. Buying a home feels like a distant fantasy. I dreamt of traveling, to see places beyond my city, to experience new cultures, but the costs are impossible right now. Even simple things, like taking a class to improve my skills or buying a reliable laptop, get postponed because they're non-essential. It's a constant balancing act between survival and aspirations, and the latter often loses out. I try to remind myself that postponing doesn't mean abandoning, but it's hard not to feel like time is slipping through my fingers, and I'm stuck waiting for some better moment that feels like it's never coming. Some nights, when the weight feels unbearable, I let myself cry, not just from frustration but from a deep sadness about how hard this path has been. But then I remind myself why I keep going. The hope that things can change, that I can find a way out or at least build a life where I'm not constantly living on the edge. I hold on to the belief that my worth isn't defined by my financial status and that someday, I'll look back and see this period as just one chapter in a much bigger story. For now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, carrying the burden of financial pressure but also the quiet resilience that comes with surviving it. I wish the world made it easier for people like me. But until then, I'm learning to be my own advocate, my own support system, and my own hope for a better tomorrow. I wake up every morning to the same nagging feeling, like a weight pressing down on my chest before I even open my eyes. It's the quiet dread of knowing that no matter how hard I work, the numbers in my bank account will barely move, but the bills? They just keep piling up. It's exhausting. Financial pressure isn't just about money, it's this constant, invisible companion that shadows every choice I make, every plan I dare to dream, and every hope I try to hold on to. I'm 27 now, and for most of my adult life, I've felt like I'm running on a treadmill set way too fast. The economy keeps shifting, but somehow it always feels like the cost of living is sprinting ahead while my paycheck is stuck jogging behind. Rent has shot up so much that even the thought of moving closer to work or into a safer neighborhood feels like a fantasy. Groceries, utilities, transportation, even a simple cup of coffee, it all adds up. I've become hyper-aware of every dollar I spend. I calculate everything in my head before making a decision. Do I really need this? Can I skip lunch today and save that $5? Will I regret turning down a social invitation because it means spending on a ride or a drink? This kind of constant budgeting feels like it drains my energy more than the actual work I do. Work itself is a mixed bag. I have a decent job, one that I'm proud of and that I'm good at, but the pay barely covers the basics. There's no cushion, no room to breathe. I can't remember the last time I bought something just for myself without guilt gnawing at me for days afterward. And don't get me started on health insurance or unexpected expenses. Every time something breaks or an emergency pops up, it feels like the system is ready to pull the rug out from under me. I have to borrow from friends or rely on credit cards, knowing that it's a slippery slope I'm desperate to avoid. Sometimes, I look at my peers who seem to be advancing, buying homes, traveling, starting families, and I feel this crushing mixture of envy and shame. It's hard not to wonder if I'm failing somehow. But then I remind myself that the whole economic environment is stacked against people like me. The cost of education left me with loans that still cling to me like a shadow. Inflation keeps pushing prices higher, but wages don't keep pace. Job security feels like a myth. It's not about personal failure, it's about a system that traps you in survival mode, no matter how much you hustle. The emotional toll is heavy. Financial stress seeps into every part of my life. Sleep is often restless because my mind races with worries about rent deadlines and whether I should try to pick up an extra shift or two. Social relationships get strained too. I want to connect, to celebrate birthdays or go out for drinks with friends, but I always have to weigh the cost. The fear of missing out clashes with the anxiety of spending money I don't really have. It makes me feel isolated sometimes, like I'm on the outside watching life happen while I'm stuck figuring out how to make it to the next paycheck. To cope, I've had to become almost robotic with my finances. Budget apps, coupons, meal prepping from scratch, scouring thrift stores for clothes. I've cut back on everything non-essential, streaming services, eating out, even small luxuries like a haircut or new shoes. It feels like I'm living in a constant state of deprivation. But at the same time, these small victories of saving a few dollars here and there give me a flicker of control in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming. Despite all this, I still dream. I still hold on to the hope that one day, things will be different. I imagine a future where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, where I can save up for a trip abroad or finally move into a place that feels like home instead of just a roof over my head. I dream of pursuing passions that aren't just side hustles to pay bills, but real expressions of who I am. Yet, every time I try to plan for those dreams, the harsh reality pulls me back. I have had to postpone or abandon so many plans, going back to school, starting a business, even thinking about buying a car. It's a strange kind of grief, the mourning of dreams deferred. But it's also a stubborn hope. I tell myself that this season won't last forever. That maybe, with some luck and persistence, the system can't keep me trapped indefinitely. Until then, I'll keep pushing, keep finding ways to manage the pressure without letting it break me. Because despite the fear, the exhaustion, and the loneliness, there's still something inside me that refuses to give up on the idea that a better life is possible. That's what keeps me going. I wake up every morning with a weight pressing down on my chest, heavier than the alarm clock buzzing beside me. It's not just the usual grogginess or the reluctance to get out of bed, it's the invisible burden of knowing that no matter how hard I work, my bank account will barely stretch to cover the essentials by the end of the week. I'm 26, supposed to be building a life, chasing dreams, and yet, I feel like I'm stuck in quicksand. The harder I try to move forward, the more the ground beneath me sinks. It started slow, almost unnoticed. When I graduated from college, the world seemed full of possibilities. I landed a decent job in marketing, enough to pay rent, afford groceries, and maybe go out once in a while. But the cost of living kept rising, rent shot up, groceries became more expensive, utilities seem to climb every month. Meanwhile, my paycheck grew at a snail's pace, barely inching above the inflation rate. It's like I'm on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my legs just can't keep up. Everyday decisions have become these tightrope acts. Do I buy a bus pass or risk walking 45 minutes to save money on transportation? Do I cook at home every night, even if I'm exhausted from work, or spend a little extra on takeout just to give myself a break? These are questions that shouldn't feel monumental, but they do, because the margin is so thin. One unexpected expense, a broken phone screen, a prescription refill, a minor car repair, and suddenly the budget collapses like a house of cards. I've learned to live by a series of tiny sacrifices. I skip coffee runs, I cut cable, I've canceled subscriptions that once felt like small luxuries. I hunt for sales on essentials and buy generic brands even though I sometimes miss my favorite products. Social outings have dwindled to almost nothing because each hangout feels like a financial risk. The hardest part isn't even the deprivation, it's the isolation that follows. Friends invite me out, but I decline more often than I join. I don't want to be that person who always says no, but I can't afford to be the person who spends beyond their means and drowns in debt. Debt is its own kind of prison. I carry student loans like a shadow, reminders of a time when I thought education was a ticket to freedom. Instead, it feels like a chain dragging behind me, growing heavier as interest piles up. Credit cards offer a temporary escape, but the bills always come due, and those interest charges are merciless. I try to pay more than the minimum, but sometimes I have to choose between paying a bill or buying groceries. It's a terrible position to be in, and it breeds shame, shame that I can't get ahead, shame that I'm barely keeping my head above water, shame that I'm so far from the life I envisioned. The emotional toll is enormous. Some nights I lie awake with my heart pounding, anxious about the next paycheck, the next bill, the next emergency. I worry about the future like a storm cloud looming just out of sight. What if I lose my job? What if something happens to my health? What if I can never save enough to move out of this cramped apartment or start a family? The pressure makes it hard to breathe sometimes, like I'm trapped in a cage of my own making, or maybe a cage built by the system itself. The system feels rigged. Everything is designed to keep you spending, borrowing, surviving paycheck to paycheck. The housing market is a nightmare, with rent so high that owning a home feels like a fantasy for someone else's life. Healthcare costs are a gamble I can't afford to lose. Minimum wage jobs exist but barely cover basics, and the gig economy promises flexibility but delivers instability and unpredictable income. I'm told to hustle harder, but I'm exhausted. The American dream feels more like an illusion, a story told to keep us hopeful while reality tightens its grip. I cope the best I can. I keep a strict budget and track every dollar. I find small joys where I can, a walk in the park, a free community event, a good book borrowed from the library. I try to lean on friends and family when I can, though I hate feeling like a burden. I meditate sometimes, to quiet the noise in my head. I dream quietly, in the background, about a life that might one day be possible. That dream is a future where I don't have to agonize over every expense. Where I can take a vacation without anxiety. Where I can invest in my passions instead of just scraping by. Where I can save for retirement instead of hoping Social Security still exists. I dream of owning a home, having a stable job with benefits, and maybe starting a family without the crushing fear of financial ruin. I imagine waking up with hope instead of dread. But these dreams are postponed indefinitely. Each day is a battle just to maintain the status quo. Sometimes it feels like I'm just existing, not living. And that's the hardest truth to accept, that for now, survival takes all my energy. Yet, deep down, I still believe in a better tomorrow. Because if I didn't, what would be the point of getting out of bed? I'm sharing this not because I want pity, but because I know I'm not alone. There are so many of us, young adults caught in this endless loop of rising expenses and stagnant wages, trying to build a life on shaky ground. It's okay to be vulnerable, to admit it's hard. It's okay to talk about how the economic pressures shape us, sometimes wear us down, but don't have to define us. I'm still here. Still trying. still hoping. And maybe, that's enough for now. I never imagined adulthood would feel like this, a constant grind, a never-ending math problem where the numbers just never add up in my favor. Every day, I wake up hoping maybe, just maybe, the tide will shift. But the bills pile up faster than my paycheck grows, and I'm stuck in this relentless loop where it feels like I'm sprinting just to stay in place. I'm 27, working 2 jobs, one in retail and a second freelance gig that barely brings in steady cash. It's not that I don't work hard, I do. Every hour feels like it's been carved out of my sleep, my social life, my sanity. But still, when rent hits, the utilities, the groceries, the gas for my aging car, and the little medical stuff I can't ignore, there's barely anything left for me. No emergency fund, no savings, nothing that feels like a safety net. Just a month-to-month tightrope walk. It's exhausting, this feeling of being trapped. Like I'm caught in a system designed for me to fail or at least just survive, not thrive. Expenses keep rising, rent is a constant monster. Even small things, like the price of milk or the bus fare, creep up. But my income? It's barely budged in the last 2 years. The gap between what I earn and what I owe seems to widen every day. I can feel it in my bones, a slow squeeze tightening around my chest. Making choices has turned into a daily ordeal. Do I spend $5 on a bus ticket or skip the trip and risk being late to my second job? Do I eat ramen again or try to stretch what little fresh food I can afford? Should I buy that essential medication or wait, hoping the symptoms don't get worse? These decisions aren't just numbers, they come with guilt, anxiety, and sometimes a dull ache of hopelessness. Social invitations are a minefield. Friends want to go out, grab a drink, or see a movie. I want to say yes, really I do. But I often have to say no because yes means stretching myself too thin. It means another hole in my budget that I can't patch. I watch my peers move ahead, traveling, buying homes, starting families, while I feel like I'm stuck in place, barely able to cover my own shadow. There's a loneliness that comes with this too. It's not just financial, it's emotional. I feel like I'm constantly apologizing for not having enough, for not being enough. Sometimes, I wonder if people even see me beyond my paycheck or my bank balance. And maybe that's the hardest part, feeling invisible, unseen, even by myself at times. Yet, despite it all, I cling to hope. Hope that the economy will improve, that a better job will come my way, that inflation will finally slow down, and that maybe one day I can breathe without counting every cent. I dream about a life where I'm not afraid of the phone ringing because it means a bill collector. I imagine a future where I can save for a small trip, or a cozy apartment with a little balcony garden. Simple things that feel so distant right now. I try to cope by finding small pockets of peace, an early morning walk before the world wakes up, the rare book I buy secondhand, late-night calls with friends who understand this struggle. Sometimes I write, pouring my frustration and fears onto paper, hoping to unburden my mind even just a little. Therapy helps too, even if it's a luxury I can't afford often. These moments remind me I'm more than my financial situation, more than the sum of my debts and expenses. I won't lie, there are days I feel completely defeated, like this pressure will break me. But then I remember why I keep going, the dream of stability, the possibility of freedom from this cycle, the hope that one day, the weight will lift enough for me to breathe and grow. Until then, I navigate each day with what little strength I have, fighting for the chance to rewrite my story, not as a cautionary tale, but as one of resilience and eventual triumph. This is my reality, raw and unvarnished. And if you hear me, really hear me, I hope you understand the quiet battles being fought by so many like me, young adults caught in a storm not of their making, yet still pushing forward with a fragile, fierce hope. It's strange how money feels like both the most ordinary and the most elusive thing in my life. I wake up every day knowing I have bills to pay, groceries to buy, rent to cover, and somehow, I have to make all of that fit inside a paycheck that somehow doesn't stretch like it used to, or like I hoped it would when I was younger. I'm 27 now, and I feel like I've been running in place for years, watching everything around me get more expensive, while my income stays mostly the same. I remember when I first got my job after college. It wasn't much, just an entry-level position at a marketing firm, but I thought, okay, this is a start. I'll work hard, maybe move up, and life will get easier. But the cost of living seemed to rise faster than my paycheck ever could. Rent went up, groceries became pricier, gas was more expensive, and those little things like a phone plan or internet felt like luxury expenses I had to constantly negotiate with myself. I try to be smart, cut back here and there, but it feels like the system is designed to keep me on a treadmill, running as fast as I can just to stay in place. Every day I make decisions that chip away at my happiness, all because of money. I don't go out with friends as much anymore. A night out feels like a small vacation budget for someone else, but for me, it's a luxury I can't afford without guilt eating at me. I skip the gym membership, even though I know it's good for my mental health, because the monthly fee adds up. When I do treat myself, it's usually a small thing, a coffee instead of a latte, a homemade lunch instead of takeout, because the difference matters. There's a heaviness that comes with always watching the numbers. I check my bank account obsessively, even though I know the balance won't have changed much. I find myself calculating expenses before I buy anything. Do I need this? Can I get it cheaper somewhere else? Is it worth it? That kind of constant mental math is exhausting, and sometimes I just want to stop thinking about money altogether. But I can't. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere, and the more I try to ignore it, the louder it becomes. The emotional toll is harder to explain. Sometimes I feel embarrassed, like I'm failing at this whole adulting thing everyone else seems to handle with ease. It's lonely because I can't always share these worries with friends who might not understand the stress of scraping by. I'm not just worried about missing a payment, I'm scared of what it means for my future, buying a home, saving for retirement, or even just having a little breathing room to enjoy life. I used to dream about traveling, about seeing the world, about experiencing things beyond my small apartment and my daily grind. But those dreams have been postponed, pushed further and further away as I focus on survival. I put aside the idea of a fancy vacation or new clothes or even hobbies that cost money. Sometimes I think about what it would be like if I could just wake up one day with no financial pressure, but that feels like a fantasy, distant and maybe unreachable. Coping is its own battle. I try to stay hopeful, reminding myself that this phase won't last forever. I lean on small things that don't cost much, long walks, reading, spending time with people who don't judge my budget. I've started journaling to keep my head straight, to put words to the frustration and the fear so it doesn't eat me up inside. And sometimes, I allow myself to dream quietly again, even if it feels risky. I keep pushing because I have to, but I wish the system wasn't so unforgiving. I wish there were more ways to make a living wage without feeling trapped. I wish I didn't have to sacrifice my mental health or my social life just to keep the lights on. For now, I hold on to the hope that someday, my hard work will pay off, not just in money, but in freedom. Freedom to breathe, to live, to dream. Until then, I keep making those tough choices, day by day, paycheck by paycheck, hoping that persistence and a little bit of luck will break this cycle. Because beyond all the financial pressure and the weight of the everyday, there's still a part of me that believes in a better future. And that belief, as fragile as it is what keeps me going. Sometimes it feels like I'm standing on a treadmill that only speeds up, no matter how hard I run. I'm 27 now, working a job that used to feel like a stepping stone but has turned into a kind of trap. Every month I get my paycheck, and for a moment, there's a flicker of hope. Maybe this time I can breathe, maybe I can set aside a little for the future, maybe I can finally fix that leaky faucet or buy groceries without worrying about whether the rent will get paid. But it never works out that way. Expenses creep in like shadows, always faster than I can keep up. Growing up, I remember hearing adults talk about getting ahead, about buying a home, having savings, and living comfortably. Those words sounded like goals, like something achievable with enough hard work and patience. But now, in my early adult life, it feels like I'm just trying to hold steady, to avoid falling behind rather than moving forward. The economic environment today feels like an invisible weight pressing down on everything I do. Inflation makes my groceries more expensive every month. Rent increases have been relentless, the apartment I live in was already a stretch, but now it's a constant source of anxiety. Utilities, transportation, insurance, every bill tells the same story: prices up, my income barely moving. I'm stuck in a system where the cost of living grows exponentially while my paycheck inches forward at a snail's pace, if at all. It's exhausting. I never imagined that my daily decisions would revolve around how to stretch a few dollars for one more week. Do I buy fresh vegetables or stick to cheaper canned goods? Can I afford to take the bus or do I have to walk in the rain? Should I skip the doctor's appointment because I can't afford the copay, even though I've been feeling off lately? These aren't decisions a young adult should have to make, but here I am. The emotional toll is something I didn't fully anticipate. It's like carrying a constant knot in my chest, a blend of frustration, fear, and shame. I try to put on a brave face for friends and family, but inside, the stress gnaws at me. Sometimes I feel so isolated, like no one really understands what it's like to live this way. People say just budget better, or try to save more, but it's not that simple when there's almost nothing left to save after bills are paid. And even when I manage to squirrel away a little, an unexpected expense, like a car repair or a medical bill, can wipe it all out overnight. Sleep is often elusive. At night, my mind races with worries: how will I cover next month's rent? What if my job hours get cut? What if something breaks and I can't fix it? The uncertainty is suffocating. Sometimes I wonder if I'm failing, if I'm doing something wrong, but deep down I know it's the system that's failing me. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I used to want to travel, to see the world beyond my small town, to go back to school and pursue something I'm passionate about. Those dreams feel like distant stars now, beautiful but out of reach. I put off going back to college because tuition is a luxury I can't afford. I've delayed getting therapy even though I know I need it, because the copays and time off work are too much. Even something as simple as buying a new pair of shoes or a birthday gift feels like an indulgence. But I'm not giving up entirely. I cope in small ways, finding comfort in quiet moments, reaching out to a close friend when the weight feels unbearable, or losing myself briefly in a book or a walk. I try to remind myself that this season is temporary, even if it feels endless. I hold on to hope that things will change, that the economy will stabilize, that I'll find a better job, or that I'll figure out a way to build a better life despite the odds. Sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, I close my eyes and imagine what freedom feels like: a steady income that covers my needs without stress, the ability to save and invest in my future, the chance to pursue passions without the cloud of financial dread hanging overhead. I dream of a day when money isn't a constant source of fear but a tool to live fully. Living in this financial pressure cooker is like walking a tightrope every single day. It demands resilience I didn't know I had and a courage that I sometimes doubt. But I keep moving forward, one day at a time, even if it's just to keep from falling off. I hope that someday soon, the treadmill will slow, and I'll be able to step off and breathe. For now, I'm here, honestly, vulnerably, doing my best to navigate a system that often feels designed to hold me back. I'm learning that survival is a form of strength and that hope, even in small doses, can keep the spirit alive. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.